Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Gut Reset Summit. I'm your host, Dr. John Dempster, and today I'm joined by Esther Blum. And Esther is an integrative dietitian and menopause expert. In the past 27 years, she's helped thousands of women master menopause using nutrition, hormones, and self-advocacy. And she is the best-selling author of See You Later, Ovulator. Love that. That's amazing. Cave Women Don't Get Fat, Eat, Drink, and Be Gorgeous, Secrets of the Gorgeous, and the Eat, Drink, am I saying this right? And Be Gorgeous Project. How did I do there? Did we do okay?
You did great. Beautiful, beautiful.
And Esther is also known as Gwyneth Paltrow's menopause mentor and by Forbes for helping women thrive through menopause. She was voted best nutritionist by Manhattan Magazine. She's appeared on the Today Show, ABC TV, and Good Day New York. And she is frequently quoted in Goop, Well Plus Good, Forbes, Time Magazine, the New York Post, the Los Angeles Times, in Style, Bazaar, Self, Fitness, Mary Claire, and Cosmo, all of the absolute biggest hitters out there. So listen, Esther, it's so good to have you on the Gut Reset Summit. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, truly.
Yeah, this is great. And I know we're going to dive into a massive topic that obviously you are an absolute expert in, and one that I think a lot of our listeners are going to thrive on today. This being a gut summit, we want to also look at all the possible connections and angles to help people with that. And what's no more important than hormones and menopause. So listen, this is a topic that is not new to you. And I'd love to hear, how you got into this. What's your story?
Yeah, how I got into it is, I started out actually in hospitals in cardiology units for 5 years as a classically trained dietitian. I had a bachelor's, I had a master's, and really was not helping people, giving them 10 minutes of diet therapy and never seeing them again until they had another cardiac incident. So I started a side hustle when I was at the hospital and started building my private practice that way. And who were the first women to walk in but menopausal mamas? And I was in my 20s. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like barely handling PMS for women. Now it's menopause. So I really had to learn quickly how to do it. And really started with playing around with intermittent fasting and carb cycling and really optimizing protein and cleaning out, inflammatory foods. And just doing that alone was helping these women with this very stubborn weight loss that they hadn't been able to get rid of for, the past 10 years. So I was really encouraged and excited by the results. And now, my own clients have grown with me. And so we're all like really in this together now. And, 6,000 women go through menopause every single day. And my inbox and my DMs are just full. I send out like weekly emails, and just when I ask women to tell me, just put the feelers out there and say, what's going on with you? My assistant compiles a whole Google document of comments. I mean, women are desperate for help, and rightly so. So it's really my passion, See You Later, Ovulator was my battle cry. I was like, I can't sit here and watch these women suffer anymore without an advocate and being gaslit by their doctors. And like, enough is enough, because, so much of the fear and the myths around hormones are debunked already. It's like medical schools are not catching up in their curriculum. So I've finally taken the stance of it really begins with us. And I feel like when every single doctor either has an empty waiting room or a practice full of women saying, I want to explore hormone therapies, I need other treatments other than the pill or an IUD, then I think it's going to shift. But the more we push and demand, the greater the chances of that happening sooner.
Yeah. Well, listen, you've been a leader in the space, and this is a very timely topic. And, I always smile when we draw connections to the gut in many, many areas. But, how do we have hormones on one side and the gut on one side? How are they connected? Tell me what's going on there.
Yeah. Well, so what most women don't realize is that, we've heard the word microbiome now. We know that the microbiome contains trillions of bacteria that influences our genetics, our mood, our hormones. But a subset of that microbiome is the estrobolome. And that set of bacteria has the job of specifically detoxing and metabolizing estrogen in the gut. And, I see a lot of women who are estrogen dominant, even in menopause, which is unbelievable to me. And they're constipated. They're not moving their bowels regularly, and maybe they're on hormones, maybe they're not, but they're just still having all the estrogen dominant symptoms. So when we clean up the gut, here is like the coolest, most inspiring piece of information I want to instill, which is when you clean up the gut, you can get rid of hot flashes. You can really minimize your menopausal symptoms or decrease them substantially. So I work with hormone and gut testing and blood testing, but I 9 times out of 10 treat the gut first.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Now, you mentioned a
Yeah.
word, a term that I want to come back to, and that's the estrobolome or estrobolome.
Mhm.
Tell me, why does this matter a little? Let's dive into that just a little bit deeper there. And for anyone who's listening, that might be a new term. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, it's, the better the integrity of your gut, of your beneficial bacteria, of your gut wall, the better forgive me, I'm tripping over my words here. The better the population of the estrobolome, that subset of bacteria, will be able to do their job, quite frankly. So if, for example, I look at stool testing for women in my practice, and many of them are just so depleted. Their commensal bacteria, which are the primary bacteria that make up the microbiome, are super, super depleted. Why is this? It's kind of a cause effect circle. So as estrogen and progesterone decline, so does the beneficial lining of the small intestine. Our phylobacteria are there, which feed on a lot of red and blue foods, pomegranates in particular, but strawberries, cherries, raspberries, wild blueberries. So we see a real decline in those bacteria in the mucosal layer of the gut. And what happens is we're not absorbing our nutrients as well. We can develop a leaky gut. We can have a decrease in the production of hydrochloric acid. And then as a result, we get overgrowth of unhealthy bacteria and dysbiosis, inflammation, and a leaky gut. And then the job of detoxing your hormones becomes all the more difficult. That estrobolome doesn't have a fighting chance. So when we repopulate the gut with healthy bacteria, we clean out dysbiosis or overgrowth, or I'll clean out if there's an overgrowth of H. pylori, all of that. And I do see a lot of parasites and pathogenic bacteria and really, really pro-inflammatory bacteria or candida. So once we clean up the gut and rebalance it, then, hormones can be detoxed better. Of course, I put women on a lot of fiber through the diet, soluble and insoluble fiber, but also in supplement form. And I have them eating a lot of cruciferous vegetables as well to help the estrogen clearance pathways in the liver. So, we take a whole approach. We also, ladies, don't bring on the hate here, but forgive me. Don't bring on the hate here, but I'm here to tell you that alcohol is not going to do your gut any favors at this point in life. It will wreck your sleep and make you very irritable and help you gain weight quite nicely and lose muscle mass. But it's also going to be very disruptive. It can really poke holes in a leaky or an inflamed gut. So like if you give alcohol a rest too, that's also going to help your hormones balance. I don't even like to use the word balance, but optimize far better. So it gives you a fighting chance. Alcohol can be estrogenic as well. So I don't know if that answered your question fully. It was kind of a roundabout answer, but it's a complicated subject. And I try to keep it in the most simple language possible, but I can tell when I'm losing people. Hopefully I haven't lost anyone
No,
listening
no,
yet.
I think I'm still fascinated. I love where this conversation's going. So yeah, no sweat, Esther. But you've got a good point there about the alcohol. Not only is it completely
Yeah.
disruptive to the gut lining and to the microbiome itself, but you're also really taking away from quality of sleep, which is how do we restore our hormones? We have to have that sleep, right? So
Yes. And your gut health. You have to have sleep to really heal your gut, and stress management and all of those things. That's why stopping alcohol is really beneficial too. Most people use it to unwind. And I'm like, that's actually a really, really tiny band-aid. The real key is breath work and mindfulness, and just like taking 3 deep breaths before you eat a meal, and just relaxing your nervous system, and giving yourself good time on the toilet in the morning to just have a bowel movement, like to really just be gentler and kinder to your body.
So you touched on some of the dietary principles that you really like. Is there
Yeah.
maybe there's something else you want to add to that? But are there any specific supplements? Is there any specific nutrients that can really support menopause or even perimenopause transition and connecting the gut as well?
Yeah. Well, certainly, I mean, fibrous vegetables, but for a lot of women, raw vegetables make them bloat up when they don't have enough digestive fire. So, cooked vegetables are wonderful, soups, bone broths, which have a lot of natural collagen, especially if you can make bone broths with knuckle and neck bones or chicken feet. Those are all, like, chicken feet is so gelatinous, but we'll call it like chicken jello or meat jello. Like the spoon, when it's refrigerated, it can like stand up in our jars of broth. So making your own bone broths is really wonderful. Cooked veggies, fresh fruits, which are really, and you can eat fresh fruit. I know it gives a little insulin bump, but fresh fruit does digest best on an empty stomach. It digests in like 20 minutes. And of course, lots of proteins. So proteins are the best proteins with the most leucine content, which is an amino acid that really supports building muscle. It comes from animal protein. Red meats have the highest leucine content, but you could certainly find plenty of leucine in chicken, fish, turkey, eggs,
Hmm.
um, cheese, cottage cheese. If you prefer not to eat animals, you can get more protein from combining plants, beans and rice or lentils, or quinoa. But just understand you're going to naturally increase your carb and calorie intake if you're trying to meet your needs with plants only. So there's the rub there.
Yeah, powerful. Now, you touched on a couple of things earlier that caught my attention in regards to testing. Are there any specific tests that you want to mention that you find really helpful that people listening today could ask their
Mm.
doctor to help them with?
Yes, with an asterisk. So your doctor, now you're a naturopathic physician, so someone like you could easily run these tests. A traditionally trained MD at best will run the blood tests. Case in point, most of my clients, even my own husband, I send to the doctor with a whole list of tests, and the doctors will say, you don't need all these tests, or because they don't want to find anything wrong, because if something is wrong, then they're responsible for following up. This is what I call lazy medicine. So I do a whole bunch of blood tests. They are all of the tests I'm talking about, by the way. You don't have to write any of this down. They're all in my book, See You Later, Ovulator. But there's lots of blood tests, and I look at everything from insulin management, blood sugar management, to cardiac inflammatory markers. I will check for nutrient deficiencies. I will check vitamin D, red blood cell, magnesium, and zinc. And really make sure that your blood chemistry is optimized. A comprehensive thyroid panel as well, with like 6 different thyroid tests, not just a TSH, which is a poor excuse for a thyroid panel. And then there are 2 at-home tests that I can do. And in Canada, these can be done too. There are doctors in Canada who do them. One is the Dutch test. That's a dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. And I do the Dutch Complete in my practice. And this gives me a very clear picture of how your hormones are being metabolized through your liver. Looks at your cortisol curve, so I can get a good picture of your adrenal function and or something or some thyroid dysregulation. And then I look at the organic acids in your brain and your gut, check for nutrient deficiencies or inflammation or melatonin deficiency. So it gives me a really clear window on your stress, on your liver function, and your methylation. Because if you, I look at these as like checkpoints before you start hormones, make sure your liver is metabolizing hormones, make sure your gut is metabolizing hormones, because if you take hormones and you don't feel well, and a lot of women have intolerances to hormones, if you're not feeling well, it may not be that you're truly intolerant. It may just be that your liver and your gut need support. And once you put those pieces in place, you actually can feel fine on hormones. So the third test I do is the GI map. And that's the one that looks at your microbiome. It checks for dysbiosis. It checks for pathogens, parasites, viruses, candida. Checks for leaky gut, gluten sensitivity, checks immune function, looks for blood in your stool, pancreatic and digestive function. So it's really, really comprehensive. It's the one I've been using for a long time. I've looked at other companies. Believe me, I get zero kickback. Otherwise, I'd be living in a serious manse right now. But I do like the test because of the specificity. And a lot of doctors will write these off, but I'm seeing the outliers, the women who have gone to lots of doctors, who have been told it's all in their head and there's nothing wrong and their blood works perfect. And when we do these tests, it's so validating for these women who have been gaslit, ignored, denied, because I say, here's the exact reason why you're having breast tenderness, or you're feeling irritable, or your sleep absolutely stinks, or you're not pooping. And then they're like, oh, thank God. So it is an investment of time and finances up front. But then once we have the root cause, it's like, I have a clear pathway to treatment, a clear roadmap, if you will.
Well, I'm sure you as well. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that I've seen patients come in for their first appointment, and we ask them to bring in their recent blood work. And, traditionally it'll come back and it's relatively normal, right? But when we take the time to do that peel and dive into it and get under the hood, it's amazing how liver function can get, they may not have hepatitis or cirrhosis that's going to get detected with an AST or an ALT or a GGT. But if you look for something called beta glucuronidase, right, in some of the stool tests, that's going to tell you that not only do you have a liver function problem, but you've got an estrogen metabolism problem. And again, these are just things that are not getting screened for.
Yes. And thank you for bringing that up, because I forgot to mention that with the GI map. Yes. The beta gluc is really, really helpful. And it speaks to, right, your estrogen metabolism and also your gut inflammation. So super duper helpful. And, the beauty is too, it really doesn't take a long time to clean up. I mean, I've seen people whose tests are lit up like a Christmas tree on many pages. And, within a couple months, we can really turn the ship around. And you give me like a good solid 6 months and we can really make some good headway. But of course, it's a multifaceted approach, right? It's not just going to be throwing supplements at the problem. If you're not changing your lifestyle, if you're on screens and staying up super late, not giving your body time to unwind and go to sleep early and really rest and rejuvenate, or say no more, or start to really think about who you're surrounding yourself with. Like, are you with the right people and the right mindset? And are you putting nutritious foods in your body, getting outside in nature, physical activity, strength training, all. That's why I say, I'm like, hormones are one piece of the pie, supplements one piece, diet one piece. It's really a combination approach. There's no one thing that's going to work.
Toxicity comes in all forms, and you've touched on some mega topics for that. So yeah, it's always time to take a good health audit. And it sounds like, that's what you're doing with your clients, which is huge.
It makes a big difference. And the other thing I want to add, that which really deserves its own slice, is healing from trauma. Because the research shows women who have suffered trauma earlier on in life have a worse menopause outcome. And that is because progesterone seems to drop earlier. So you get an uptick in anxiety, And the anxiety and mental health changes in menopause are very, very real. You get a lot more adrenal burnout. So you're going in with lower reserves than someone who's, not gone through what you've gone through. So dealing with trauma is also a really important piece. And we do a lot of work with that in our practice as well, with, EFT and hypnosis. And it really is an important piece of the puzzle too.
And you just reminded me of something, when you go through a stressful event and you could be reliving this stressful event over and over when it comes to trauma, you actually change the nature of your microbiome within 24 hours of that stimuli. And, it could have been a fight with a spouse, or it could be something, that's been going on since your childhood that you might have been triggered by. And we're seeing the data that really suggests that you've got to still resolve that underlying trauma. So I'm really glad and happy that you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah. And listen, there's a lot of good answers for you too, especially like if you're really stuck, if there's parts of your health that won't budge, or stubborn weight loss due to, or stubborn fat, body fat due to, real eating issues that stem from abuse, which are completely valid. But if you can get set free from that and heal and change your relationship with food in your body, that's when the magic really happens.
So can you take us through like what a typical workup would be like if somebody walks into your practice? Let's say right now we've got, call it a 52 to 53-year-old female just kind of transitioning in her cycle into menopause or even perimenopause, and depending on what her case is. What would your approach be? Do you do the testing initially? Do you put them on a core program first, just so that anyone listening who might be interested in working with you can understand?
Yes. And I made a whole video about it on the application page to work with me. So if you don't get it all here, go back and watch the video. So I do the testing beforehand. It's usually a 6 to 8 week turnaround time from the time someone enrolls in my practice to the time I physically see them, because testing takes time and I take time to review the test with the labs as well. So when people see me, it's myself, and I have a nutrition coach in my practice who's also a personal trainer and has a fitness studio. So the two of us partner together and we sit on a 90-minute consultation with you where we take your full medical history. We run through all your lab results, your blood, your GI map, and your Dutch. And then we customize an eating plan for you. We curate your supplements, which are put in a dispensary and delivered right to your door. We will also customize workouts and lifestyle changes, send you meditations we've recorded. We have a real library of resources that our clients have access to. And then if you are in need of hormones or a functional medicine doctor, we also connect you to doctors. I personally call doctors' offices for people and advocate for them, or, send the test results. I act as a liaison so that people who work in our practice really feel very held and supported. And then we see you every 2 weeks. So you have one appointment. I work with people in 6-month packages minimum. So you have an appointment with my coach once a month and with me once a month. So every 2 weeks you are seen by each of us. And in between, we have you log your food. We give you support and accountability and structure. We'll give you feedback on your logs. The supplement regimes are also very dynamic, because you may be on a gut healing protocol for 5 weeks. Then, we're killing off unhealthy bacteria. Then we're healing the gut wall, and then we'll retest again. So it's very individualized, very dynamic. Or we help get you started on hormones as well, get you through that journey as well. Most people think they get a prescription for hormones and boom, that's it. That's also a dynamic process and has to be titrated carefully and ramped up in dosages. If you hit your perfect dose in the first round, that's great, but I would expect it's going to be a solid 3 months before you're really on a protocol that feels good to you. And if you start in perimenopause, but you could start introducing hormones in perimenopause, which is really the most beautiful way to smooth out those bumps. But once you hit menopause, you're going to probably need to recalibrate, or you may not go in needing estrogen, but on the other side, you will need estrogen at some point. So there's also vaginal estrogen to consider. Most women and their doctors don't even talk to them. They're like, oh yeah, sex is very painful. Okay, use lubricant. No, sister, you need vaginal estrogen because the vaginal walls tend to atrophy a lot in menopause. You get bladder issues, UTIs, more frequent urination, especially at night. So if that's the case, vaginal estrogen and pelvic floor therapy is also a really important piece of the puzzle too.
Yeah, it's and I'm glad you said, you mentioned that it's not always nailed on the first dose. I've been working with hormones for over 17 years, and you've got to tweak them, on occasion, and but it can be very, very helpful and such a game changer. And
Yeah.
I also love that that you have a 6-month program. You don't have a 1-month program. It's very hard to make life-changing impact in a very quick matter of time when somebody's been deeply rooted in certain patterns their whole life. So I love that you set it out with a 6-month program.
Yeah, well, a lot of people say, but can't you just run my tests? And
Right.
I say that would be medically irresponsible and unethical to just send you out into the ocean in a canoe with no sail, no oars, nothing, no life raft. So you're never one and done. And it took you a long time to get here, and it's going to take you some time to right the ship again.
What are some of the other, important concepts that you feel that most women going through perimenopause or menopause are lacking when it comes to their healing? Is there anything else, any gems and pearls you could share with us?
Yes, two in particular. One is optimizing your protein intake. And most people do not realize that you need more protein as you age, not less. And the research is going to be emerging more and more. And people say, well, I really want a plant-based diet. It's better for the planet. So I'm going to tell you, when you are treating people in practice like I am, and you see them losing muscle mass, you may change your mind, because it is far harder to build muscle on plant proteins. It can be done. There are vegan bodybuilders, but I really see the difference in energy, in mood, in adrenal function, in sleep, in blood sugar with a protein forward diet where your carbs are decreased. I have 3 Meno laws for fat loss, right? One is optimizing protein intake, and that means at least a minimum of 4 ounces of protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Or if you're intermittent fasting, 7 to 8 ounces of protein at your 2 meals per day. Number 2 is having your protein ratios be higher than your carbs. So if you're eating 120 grams of protein a day, your carbs can hang around 100. If you're strength training, this should go up. Okay, you have to fuel your workouts. You cannot starve yourself. Number 3 is to have carbs at night. Why? And most people are like, are you crazy? And yes, I am, for the record, but not because of this. So having carbs at night bumps up your insulin a little bit, which tamps down cortisol. So it actually helps you sleep more deeply, more restfully. It's very calming. And of course, you're pairing it with protein and fibrous vegetables, which blunts the glycemic response. So protein, right? That's number 1. Number 2 is strength training. What is the largest cause of death above the age of 65? It is fractures and falls. And this happens when, osteoporosis really starts in menopause. If we're not taking estrogen, the loss of bones is significant, even with taking vitamin D, calcium, magnesium, boron, zinc, all the trace minerals. Without estrogen, you will speed up the risk of osteoporosis. Optimizing protein really and collagen intake supports the bone matrix, but so does strength training. And so muscle's the organ of longevity, right? It regulates inflammation, it regulates blood sugar, it helps your body utilize nutrients and carbs more effectively, makes you a little more insulin sensitive. So really optimizing protein while you strength train is so amazing. I'm personally lucky, my 16-year-old son is like, his passion is weightlifting. He's so into following all these social media people. He follows like Navy SEALs, he's very inspired by that, which I love. So like he and I go to the gym together, and what an amazing, it's such a gift to be able to spend time that way, but also show him like, hey, I'm in my early 50s, even though I tell him I'm like 31, but, and that he sees like, you can be strong at any age. You can put on muscle at any age, people. It may take you a little longer, but you can do it. There's 91-year-olds who put on muscle. The research is there to support it. So stay strong, lift. Now, some people may say, I can't lift heavy. For you, 3 to 5 pounds may be heavy. For other people, 20 pounds may be heavy. It really just start where you're at, start somewhere, start with some resistance.
I love
That's
that.
a real must.
Some of my patients in their 70s said that they've never been in the best shape of their life until they reach 70. So like that's when they
Oh my
start to take
God.
things seriously. Now, obviously, I think most of us that happens much sooner, but it's never too late, as you said. I think that's really powerful. I had a question for you. What are some of the biggest myths that you see right now for people going through perimenopause and menopause and trying to achieve not only their best gut health, but their best metabolic health? What are some of those things that we're being blasted with online that are standing out to you?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest disservice to women is that they don't need hormones in menopause, or they only need hormones for a couple of years. I mean, what women don't realize is testosterone is the dominant hormone in a woman's body prior to menopause. I mean, they have 5 times the hormone of any of estrogen, progesterone, or DHEA. So hormones are the Women's Health Initiative that scared the crap out of women has been debunked again and again. You can go to menopause.org to read the position papers and the updated statements on it. But hormones are safe, they're effective. They will be safe for long-term use. I mean, the Framingham Women's Study looked at vaginal estrogen use in women for 18 years. There was zero increase in cancer, breast cancer for women. I mean, these are microdoses, and we have to remember that doctors are so happy to put women on the IUD and the pill, which are 5 times the amount of hormones that a woman gets in menopause. It's a microdose that we're getting, but those doses are life-changing. What most women don't realize is Alzheimer's, early cognitive decline starts in menopause, because estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone all have dramatic effects on different areas of cognition and learning and mental focus. So the feeling of like, where are my keys? I can't remember your name. Why did I come in this room? Like that all clears up. It's as if you were staring out a dirty window and someone came and squeegeed it clean. And you're like, wow, my thoughts are so clear. I don't have brain fog anymore. I'm like forming cohesive sentences. So also, heart disease prevention, estrogen and testosterone are extraordinarily protective over heart disease.
Mm-hmm.
Another myth, menomyths, I call them, is that if you don't have a uterus, you don't need progesterone. So like, well, the doctors say, oh, the purpose of progesterone is to protect the uterine lining. And so if you don't have one, you don't need it. Absolutely not true. Progesterone makes GABA, which is a very calming neurotransmitter. It helps with sleep. It helps with anxiety. But again, it also helps with cognitive function. So why would you not put progesterone in the mix? It's really important that we get the ratios of estrogen to progesterone to testosterone correct. And then, yes, we need testosterone, we need DHEA, and we need vaginal estrogen for life. We put moisturizer on our face at night, should have vaginal estrogen twice a week for life in the evening. If you want to prevent atrophies, UTIs, you think about your mothers, your grandmothers, and nursing homes constantly getting UTIs when they're old. They get dehydrated, especially if they have dementia, and it's a huge cause of death. Whereas if we gave women vaginal estrogen, like, could just reverse that situation completely. So a lot of diseases of aging are really preventable with hormones.
Very powerful. Esther, thank you. Now, where can we learn more about you online for anyone who's listening right now?
Thank you so much. So please go to my Instagram at gorgeous Esther, and that's ESTHER, and go to estherblum.com. That's my website.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. This has been really powerful and informative and inspirational, I think, to many people listening right now. And thanks for all that you do, Esther. Keep it up. I can't wait to hear the next title of your next book. Those are amazing.
Ah, thank you. Me too. I'm curious what it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, listen, thanks again. Take great care, and we'll see you real soon.
See you soon.